Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert Ian Barnard and the incredibly talented South African illustrator Lisa Glanz. We are missing a Mr. Dustin Lee this week, I'm afraid, but he will be back with us next time. This week, we're going back to square one. We're looking at how it feels to be back at the start of a new creative venture, the courage that it takes to make that plunge, the fear that comes along with the ride, and some other meaningful sounding phrase that starts this episode off on the right note. If you can tell, I wrote this intro about 10 seconds ago because I forgot to do it this week, guys. So without further ado, let's get into the show. What is up, Lisa and Ian?
What's up?
Hello.
We're going back to like the 2000s there. What's up?
Totally.
So yeah, this episode actually came about because the lovely Miss Glanz was sharing a personal anecdote in how she is feeling like she's going back to square one. And I know everyone looks at you, Lisa, and to be honest, you're much more popular than we are. Everyone kind of fawns over your talents.
No way.
Big time. Everyone quite rightly thinks that you and your work are fantastic. But it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. You get your own impostor syndrome, right? Even now.
Oh,
so
definitely.
Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Well, I've recently kind of re-looked at my exclusive patterns, the exclusive licensing pattern portfolio. And what that really means is it's a whole bunch of stuff that I've designed, a whole lot of patterns that I've designed that I haven't really licensed to anybody yet. I haven't sold it, as part of my graphic packs. And that work is slightly different to the stuff that I sell in my packs in the sense of it's more personal. So I've taken more personal risks, I guess, creating that. And yeah, I'm kind of freaking out about it because my aim is to launch it quite soon on my website, and having it public or at least sort of semi-public. It's a scary feeling because it's vulnerability, it's exposure, and what if it's just like crickets? Nobody likes it. And I was just thinking the other day, I do have a bit of a wacky sense of taste sometimes, and I think sometimes my color palettes are totally off the charts, but I'm just hoping out there's a client that would like it. But as you can hear, I'm really insecure about it. Yeah.
Is it because you're going into a new space that feels quite alien?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I to be honest with you, I actually have no idea. I don't know that industry at all. I don't know what clients are looking for. I'm basically starting from scratch as if I was a new designer walking out of school kind of thing, and wanting to build a career. So I have no idea where my pattern designs will fall into the whole industry and whether there is actually a spot for me. I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of people out there that say there's always a spot for everyone. There is always a spot, but I guess I'm just scared. I'm scared that I'm going to go through all this trouble and people are going to go, really? Like, what the hell's that?
Yeah, stick to your bunnies, love.
Yes, exactly.
Have you been in contact with any of the people who source pattern designs for
Well, yes. Every now and then I do have people who send me emails saying, do I have any work that I can license to them exclusively? So obviously that means then it's work that I haven't ever sold anywhere else. And I have sent a few, of my work to them, and I have luckily licensed and even sold a few patterns in the past, but it's been few and far between. And I would say, it's going back to that whole thing, like the cold calling. So say I've had 20, maybe 5 will be interested, and so those other 15 that I've sent my work to, you never hear back from them, and you just think, well, man, was it that shit? I don't know. I mean, I should take my own advice. I know this is how it works.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing of the more work you put out there, the higher your chances of being found or
there's a great
being
little
hired or
podcast I know that preaches a lot of this stuff.
I know, but you know, when you're going through it, it's like all that stuff means nothing. You don't care what anybody's been telling you or what you've been telling yourself. You know, you still
I know
still
exactly
petrified.
what you mean. How does it feel to essentially have to eat a big slice of humble pie? Not that you have ever been arrogant, but I think it's fair to say you've reached a certain level of success in your creative career. And you've probably reached a point of feeling relatively confident and comfortable with that. You know, you really know what you're doing. You've hit a bit of a rhythm with it. You found your style. You've got a steady community and clients. That all sounds lovely. So to have to jump into something new, to go back to square one, to eat that humble pie, how does that feel?
Well, I think that's probably why I have been procrastinating, because I literally have work that's like 4 years old that I've never shown anyone, and I'd love to have a license, but it's exactly what you just said. Like I couldn't, I don't think I could have built both avenues successfully and dealt with all the emotional stuff that comes with it. I think I had to, you know, build my illustration career first, and now that I, as you said, feel comfortable, and I'm so fortunate to be in a position where I can actually start branching out into different avenues. And it's like, in a way, as you said, it's really humbling, and I'm glad I'm in that position, because you need to be reminded, you know, that you're a nobody, and you got to make it work for yourself, kind of thing, you know.
Well, and you never want to rest on your laurels or be apathetic.
Oh, never.
You want to challenge yourself, right?
Absolutely. And you know, there's that thing that I think a lot of artists have, or if not all, that, you know, we want to make it on our own. We want to make it because our work is good enough, and that's a nice feeling from that point of view. Like, you really want to build it up yourself, but at the same time, it's frightening. It's scary. But luckily, as I said, I'm very fortunate. I don't have to rely on it, you know, from an income point of view. It's basically anything at stake here is my ego, which
is scary though.
It is scary.
So what are you going to do? How are you going to move past this? How are you going to be a shining case study to the listeners in what you should be doing?
Well, so on my run the other day, Ian, I know you run. You don't run, do you, Tom?
Oh no, I'm incredibly unfit.
No, he does pull-ups and posts them to Instagram.
Yeah, no, I'm more strength training. I know you wouldn't think it to look at me, but
he flexes his muscles like, oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, welcome to the gun show, baby. That's me in the gym.
I just had a vision of you in a Rambo outfit, and it was quite a vision.
No, more spandex, I'm afraid.
Bright pink, hopefully.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, good. Ian, so I don't know if you do the same when you're running. You actually start thinking, like, you know, more meditative thoughts, like deeper thoughts that you wouldn't naturally have time for, I guess, during the day. And I was just thinking on my run the other day that, like, I don't know, I had a little talking to myself, and I just thought, you know, I've got to put all those fear of, like, oh, I'm not good enough, and will they accept me? I've got to put that aside and just be myself. But I also have learned along the way that, I mean, that's really healthy to think like that and be like that. But at the same time, you also have to know how to audit yourself. Because I think there comes a time where, you know, like, you're in the moment and you think, like, for example, the color palette that I've chosen looks unbelievably amazing, and I'd wear that in a heartbeat. And the next day you come back and you go, oh my God, what was I thinking? So it's like, you need to have the ability to still go with who you are and your originality and your uniqueness, but at the same time have the ability to pull back, stand back, and at least assess your work from a, what's the word? You know, like a critical eye. That's the word I was looking for. But not water yourself down, but at least, I guess it's that taste level. So if you really like pink, should it be all over the room, or should it just be on like 3 cushions kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's
Quick
quite
idea.
difficult.
I don't know if you thought about this, but if you want to take this seriously, are you going to post on your Instagram and your social media and say, I'm thinking about doing this? You can post a few of your patterns, do a long form description, and kind of tell a short version of the story you're telling now. And then you could also email your newsletter community and say, this is like just being open with you guys. Like, I realize most of you are here for my digital product stuff. But I wanted to share something which I'm really passionate about this year. I'm challenging myself. It should be fun. You might not know this side of me, but I've done a bit of it. Here's some patterns, and here's a link to the Honest Designers show where I actually talk about this more if you're interested. But let me know if you know anyone in this industry where you think they might be a great fit, or we'd be a great fit for each other. And I really appreciate like any recommendations or anyone who's kind of in that space.
That's an ingenious idea,
because it might open doors, but even if it doesn't, your audience will appreciate you being open.
Yes. And it's like, as you're saying that, and the part of me is going, that's really clever, the other part of me is panicking, like literally, like, I don't want to do that. Are you crazy? I'm not doing that.
No, but your audience would be like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't even know you did that kind of thing. How awesome.
I know. But,
and then, my cousin actually works for Gucci or whatever. And, she wants to talk to you.
And then she's not on the next episode because she's flown out to New York and Paris and Milan. And
yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, so those are all... those are not new struggles for me or for any creative out there, I guess.
Can I just point something out about the running?
Yes. Yes.
All I'm thinking about is, am I going to breathe? I'm going to I'm like, I go out with like, oh yeah, I got this time, think about new ideas, or, because I'm a Christian, I might pray, or, stuff like that. And all I do is literally get just like... Am I near the end? I'm near the end. They get home and I'm like, oh, it's a waste of half an hour, as in terms of, I feel better, but just the general, yes. I think, because I can't even listen to music because it sort of distracts me from my running. Neither. And so I literally spend half an hour running just to get home again. So,
no, that's classic. Are you serious? That's like... No, man, that sounds torturous.
That's the opposite.
So you don't really have...
Sure, it's like the opposite of like a Nike advert or something. Where it's like you're at one with the road. Like, this is where you find yourself, and you're there having like an asthma attack.
Yeah. Now, like I feel I really enjoy doing riding, like road riding or mountain biking, but I don't often get to do it as much because it means me not going, because it means taking quite a portion of my weekend out when I'm not seeing my kids. So I've put that on hold until they're old enough either to come with me, or, they might be off with their friends, and, I've got that time.
Very good of you, by the way.
Thank you.
I've learned if you want to be a really neglectful partner or parent, learn golf. Because that takes a lot of time.
That's like almost a weekend gone.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I started running, was just because it was short and I could do it
quick.
In the evening once the kids have gone to bed, whereas cycling is less easier to do. You have to have all the gear and stuff.
It takes much longer.
So, but I sometimes enjoy it. I sometimes find it quite a chore, but I know it's good for me. And it does clear my head. That I'm not thinking about anything while I'm going around is...
maybe afterwards. Really? You've got the calm after the storm.
Yeah, maybe. If I'm not thinking... Actually, what I'm thinking about is like, what can I eat when I get home?
How do I cancel that run out?
Yeah, completely. I get home and eat 3 times the amount of calories I've burned.
I've utterly negated my exercise for the day.
Anyway, sorry, so bit of a tangent.
No, that's hilarious.
So, Lisa, I'm personally, when you started telling us this before the call, I was like, okay, I really want to talk about this for a few reasons. One is that I think it's important that you remain relatable to the listeners.
Yes.
Hopefully you normally are, but I think this is so relatable because essentially you are earlier in this journey than most of the listeners will be in theirs.
Yes.
And that's pretty cool, I think.
It is.
And I hope that we can document it and kind of give periodic updates on the show, Because for me, and I talk about this in my personal content, I always encourage people to go back to the start as much as you can. So if you look up to someone, go back to like their first post on Instagram or whatever it might be, and then slowly scroll up and see the gradual progression. And that is the exciting phase for me. So to be honest, like I love everything that you do, but I'm more excited to watch your journey now from the inception point develop rather than be like, it's another great week in Glands Land, you know?
Oh, that sounded a bit weird. But
yeah,
yes.
it did.
And the thing is, you've even though you have got the business of you're selling digital products, as you know, that could be someone's 9-to-5 job, and they're trying to do the pattern design outside of that job, and, which is what you're doing.
It's your side hustle,
which is essentially
basically
what I'm doing.
Yeah,
it's a side hustle, and I think the majority of the listeners are in that position, Ian. So many that we talk to have day jobs, and they're trying to learn a craft or develop something in their spare time. So exactly what you're doing, Lisa.
I mean, I remember the intense insecurity that I had when I first started selling digital products. I mean, Cliff would have to. This is honest show, people. Cliff would have to literally almost pick me up off the ground because I was such a wreck emotionally, thinking no one is going to buy my stuff. So it's luckily I'm not in that position now, because I've learned along the way that that's A, not true, and B, it's unhealthy. And there's always, as I said, there's room for everyone, but you still will go back to that place of insecurity. And I guess it's all part of the creative journey and getting to know yourself more and more, and also like backing yourself. Like I didn't have a clue how to do that at first, but if you think about it, you're pretty much the only one who really does.
You have to be your own cheerleader.
Yes, exactly that. That's what I mean. I mean, obviously your partner, and if you have great family and friends, helping you, that's fantastic. But some of us don't actually have that, and some people actually have to struggle to convince people to think, like pursue their creative dream. So yeah, you've got to learn to be your own cheerleader, and that is actually what I have learned over the years, which is a good thing.
Okay, so you've learned. How are you doing that right now with this new venture?
Well, as I said, the minute I catch myself going down that nasty, like you're not good enough place, I just remind myself that there's room for me, and someone is going to think that our work is perfect for their company. So I just keep bringing myself back to that fact, and also remind myself, it may take a while for somebody to find me, and that's cool. I don't mind that. Well, I kind of do.
I was just going to say, let's keep it super honest.
I kind of
it's all well and good.
Like,
this is why I'm enjoying this, because we preach a lot of stuff, but when we're in those shoes,
I know.
Some of it can be lost in the like romantic nostalgia of, well, I was just, young and plucky, and I kept on trucking back in the day, and, just enjoy the journey, man. And the knocks are good, and you learn from them. All of that is true, but it doesn't feel like that at the time. So realistically, and I'm sure this won't happen, what if like you really throw yourself into this, and for like a year or 2 years, you don't really get any traction, you just get a lot of rejections? How do you think that would feel?
I guess it would depend on how much I am emotionally relying on the success of it. So I'm the kind of person that if I find along the way that something is off, like in other words, I'm not getting the traction that I wanted, or it really is obvious that I'm really not going to, be successful, if I can call it that, in that realm, I already start mentally preparing myself. And you see, it depends on how hungry I am for it. So at the moment, it's just, I would really like it, but I wouldn't be devastated if it didn't happen.
Is it true that the more you invest, the harder the fall, or the bigger the knock if it doesn't happen? So
absolutely.
Like the more hours you invest, like you say, the more emotions you invest as well. If you 5x'd both of those, you'd probably feel 5 times as bad if it isn't working out at any stage.
Absolutely. But I think what I always think in the back of my mind, I'm going back to that thing of how privileged I am to be in this position. I don't have to rely on it from a money point of view, like an income, because I already have an income. So it would be more a case of, it's, as I said, it's an ego thing. And the second thing is, I could easily adapt those, those patterns and then sell them in my set. So it wouldn't be work that just sat there and never went anywhere.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have dreams for your little baby that you've created, and you think it'll look so cute on a baby grow or a kid's something, and it just, if it never happens, it's like sad. I don't know.
So I don't want to fire too many questions at you, but I do find this really interesting. How do you feel your mindset is going to differ now compared to if you did this like 10 or 15 years ago? So you're going into this, I don't know, you tell me.
I think I'd be more mature in the rejection.
I don't even mean rejection, I mean the whole thing. Like, how are you going to go about this kind of more with your eyes open, or maybe in a more mature way than you might have?
Okay, well, firstly, I will know. I mean, I know now, and I wouldn't necessarily, I would have had an idea of it, but wouldn't have really fully understood the massiveness of it. That I know now that the more effort I put into getting my work out there, the more chances that I will have success in licensing. So I know I can't just sit back and hope that someone's going to come knocking, because that's just, it'll be lovely, but it's unrealistic. So I know that, which I probably wouldn't have known back then. I also know that I'm going to be rejected probably by somebody I really want to work with, and it's going to feel horrible at the time, but I also trust that things work out the way they should. So there's the business side that I would know more about, and then of course the emotional side that I've obviously learned, through experience. I don't know. Does that answer the full question, or? Yeah,
I think so. And along those lines, what tips would you give to listeners that are getting into something now, like whether it's a side hustle or a new venture?
Well, I think definitely have a fallback. I mean, like currently this is a side hustle. So if you're gonna sacrifice your current income to do your side hustle, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best route. Like, I would never neglect my other business to pursue this. Not yet. I'm not at that stage.
So if you're not neglecting it, you're just adding additional time. Is that right?
Or I'm finding, when I say neglect, I'm not like totally just dropping it. So I might necessarily not, like, for example, maybe say I create 10 products a year, I might only create 8 because I've spent that extra time, creating the pattern. So it's not, I don't see that as a neglect. I just see it as a negotiation. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, I think, if I don't want to compromise on actually having a life outside of my work.
Yeah. Ian, what are you hearing over there, buddy?
I was reading the book I promoted last week, again, sort of finishing off, and there's something in there about when you're trying to. I was mainly looking at trying to find out what you're good at, but also I suppose it applies to this, is that there's 2 stages. There's explore and exploit. And like in Lisa's case, she's exploring at the moment. She's exploring this avenue, and if it does get traction of any form, she can then exploit that in terms of then putting more effort into that portion of her, what she hopes to be her business. But I suppose you don't know when that's coming. I suppose, to give it an analogy, you're sort of like you're going through the trees and you can't really see the distance, and at some point you might come out the trees and you can see where you're going.
Yes.
And then you can just like, oh, that's much easier. And there's a bit of a like, oh, it's easier now, rather than just tripping over the roots of the trees and getting a bit lost because you can't see the sun, because that helps you with your direction.
Yes.
And so you're just sort of like, at the moment, just sort of like, okay, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to sort of like try over this way, you know, reach out to some companies, or I'm going to like hope it's this way, which is, you know, put my stuff on the website, maybe getting on a directory or whatever that may be. And it might be the case that actually you do one of those things and you end up in another part of the forest and you're like, oh, actually, or you get to a fence and you actually can't go any further and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then you have a choice whether you know, think, okay, I'll go back the way I came, or you turn around and go off in a different direction.
Yeah.
You know, still with the same aim of your journey, but you have to think, okay, that's that part closed and let me try over here. And the thing is, that fence might end at some way point down the line. So when you come back over to that side, you might have a way through. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, that analogy is actually spot on, because, I mean, 4 years ago when I started this whole thing, I felt like I'd hit a fence. And in a way, I'm grateful that I did, because I really wasn't ready. I mean, I hadn't figured out my style yet. I didn't know who I was as an illustrator, you know, all that stuff. So in a way, it's a good thing, because now at least I know the stuff I create is actually from my heart, and I know it's my style.
So were you mature enough to see that when you were doing it then? Because like, I find sometimes that I'm in the middle of something, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. But then you look back and like, actually, you know, you weren't quite there and stuff like that.
Yes. So. It's only in retrospect, because at the time I had entered all these competitions, and I'd contacted people, and I just never got anything back. Never ever, you know, I didn't get anywhere. And I just thought, well, you know, what's wrong with me? Like, why don't you like me? But yeah, the thing is, as I said, I'm just like, because of, I guess I've been alive a little longer than, not most, but you know what I mean, than like 20-year-olds. I've kind of figured out that things do happen for a good reason. I really believe that, and I've had so many examples of that in my life, and I just think that there was a reason why I didn't get anywhere at that time, because I just wasn't ready. And I think I would have been so overwhelmed. I never had the opportunity to really discover what my style was, you know, because you're so busy trying to make a living out of something. I didn't think you really explore who you really are, I guess.
Yeah, and also I think it's also timing as well, because I feel that like, depending on like, I suppose that actually what's the trends of going on in, you know, in the world can actually make a difference to whether your stuff is picked up quicker than it would do. Because I feel like at the moment, like, illustration is really popular. I think it's like, it was like the focus was on maybe lettering quite considerably, and illustration wasn't anywhere close to it. And now I feel that they're like both as popular as each other, and I'm seeing a lot more posts that are illustrative based than I am just of lettering. And actually, you know, for me, I feel I need to up my illustration game, because I think there's something special about having both those elements, of both of the lettering and the illustration.
Yes, and the gem is having the two together.
Yeah,
to me, that's
and there's a lot of people sort of that I follow seem to be doing really well, because actually that trend is sort of meeting up now, and that's what companies are after. So something where, you know, you maybe were doing it last, you know, a year ago, and you were like, oh, I'm not getting any traction, and then suddenly move on 1 year, and actually that traction, because of the whole industry, is actually industry or the trend, whatever, you know, what company is looking for is now what you're doing. And so then you could so it might be the case that 4 years ago was really not the right time, whereas now it could be the right time, you know, the whole illustration and stuff like that, and patterns might be, you know, I don't know much about pattern design, but, you know, it could be the case that, companies are looking for that specific style. And so it's hard when timing is something that's out of your control, but also something that's can play a factor, but you don't know until you explore it and try it.
You don't know until you're there. And my other fear is, what if I go down this avenue and I realize I actually don't like it?
Then what's the worst thing that can happen? You pivot and you try something else.
I know, because that's, you know what, it's actually, I've had it once before, but it's unfair to actually use it as an example, because I was so green, and I was totally like inexperienced with illustration, and to be honest, I was actually crap. And I had somebody approach me to illustrate. I think I might have told you the story. Sorry if I have, everyone. Somebody approached me to illustrate a kid's book, but it was kind of more of an educational angle. And of course, that was like my dream come true. But I had absolutely no clue what it involved. I had no idea how much work it was going to be and how pathetically little they were going to pay me. And I spent hours and hours, and I was so inexperienced. I couldn't draw properly. Like, something that should have taken me 10 minutes took me 3 hours. It was actually a rather hideous experience. And I walked away from the whole thing thinking, man, I really had these ambitions to be like a children's book illustrator, and I really hated it. So
there's a balance, right,
weird...
between don't be fixed and rigid and afraid to pivot, but equally don't give up at the first hurdle.
Yes, and I might have done myself a disservice by taking on that job too early before I was ready. Because now I've kind of like burnt that bridge in myself.
No, you haven't. You can always go back.
I know I could, but I've always toy with that idea, but I dread it because I think it's going to be the same experience, which obviously it won't be because I'm much further down the journey. But yeah,
see,
it's all interesting stuff.
Yeah,
it's weird
because I was getting really fed up. About 10 years ago, you get really fed up being on the screen all the time, and that's when it might be even longer than that ago, where I became an electrician at night school. I wasn't like going to do it full time, but I needed that physicality that I wasn't getting through my work. And I thought, my grandpa was an electrician all his life, and I really, looked up to that. And, that's his, but if you can see it on the video, at the top of my shelves is this old sort of electrical meter.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I wonder what that was.
Wow, that's cool.
From like 1950s, 60s or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But so cool.
It was fine at college. That was all fun. It was quite hard on my own brain because I hadn't been in class for over a decade. But and I was, learning all about resistors, and I was doing a bit more maths and stuff like that.
Oh, that must have been rough.
I know.
Yeah.
And there's all these people about like 15 years younger than me, and I'm like,
no.
Here comes. Well, I wasn't that old at the time, but there was like
Grandad Barnard.
In comparison, yeah.
But the thing is, I did a bits and bobs, and it was okay. But then I was like, the hard thing about it is actually not the actual, wiring up a plug or wiring up a socket. That's quite straightforward. Once you get, there's only one way of doing it properly. The thing is, I was up in a loft in the middle of the summer in someone's attic, and it was so hot, no room to move, with this insulation burning the back of my throat because it was like, sort of fiberglass. And I was like, this is not something I want to do. And I was like, that's it. And so, it also combined in with like new legislation coming into the UK as well. And I was like, actually, yeah, this is not for me. And then it released me into a new season of creativeness in, it wasn't, it was quite a while before, I started Clickfee, but I think I needed to get a different aspect. And actually then it drove me into the question of because I wanted to do something with my hands. That's why I didn't want to watch Downton Abbey on TV with my wife. and I tried being an electrician, but the reason why I went for Clickfee was it had some relation. I could have chosen illustration or other things that were in that sort of arty crafty, whereas electrician is more the building side. And I wanted to do something with my hands, and going down that analog route in a time when the internet was really
taking off.
Instagram was just starting, and Facebook had been around for a few years and stuff like that. And so, but then I didn't know that they was going to transform my career the way it did.
But you never know.
Yeah.
That's
you
the point.
never know. But
you've got me wondering, by the way.
know.
I wonder if there's any like electrician influencers who are massive on Instagram or that kind of thing. Just like live streaming, rewiring a plug.
Yeah. The thing is, unfortunately, it was not like it was just the wiring aspect. So it's not really like if it was actually the electronic side of stuff where I could like wire up some neon lights and do
something more
lettering.
exciting. Yeah.
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 But were you disappointed when you realized that it wasn't for you?
Well, yeah, because it was never going to be a full thing, but it was just like actually the thing that's tricky and they don't teach you is how to. Okay, you've got this room that's nicely plastered, the floor's down, the ceiling's down. You've got to put a light over there. How'd you get there without wrecking the rest of the room? That's the thing I was struggling with. How'd you get from point A to point B, without wrecking the floorboards or wrecking the wall? And it was the things that they don't teach you in college, which is actually like when you come out as a designer, they don't teach you about business and marketing, or they didn't teach me. And actually, that's the element that
keeps you going.
It needs to keep you going. That's the element that makes your hobby a business.
That's right.
And without that, you won't get any work and you won't get any money. So, and it's the bit that is, Tom enjoys it. I struggle with it.
You're like, what a madman.
Yeah, I struggle. That's why I come to Tom for advice, because I struggle with it because, I'm trying to get better. I'm reading up more about it, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. And so when something like that, it takes more effort to do it.
Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of touched on this. I think it can be done with creativity. And I want to come back to that in another episode, but I think you can be super creative and have fun in your marketing. I think you can.
I think that's a brilliant episode because I think not only will Ian and myself benefit, but I think there's so many creatives out there that just really shut off when they hear the word marketing themselves.
Yeah,
because they're scared.
I'll give you one example super quick. So we're working on something pretty awesome for Design Cars, and we're going to do it where after people sign up, they watch a video of us having a party in their honor in the office where we're just being idiots and like dancing around and letting off party poppers and balloons and stuff. That's cool. One minute example of like creativity,
how you can make it
leading
fun.
into it. Yeah. I don't look at that and think, oh, that's going to be a drag. Like that's going to be a really funny day and hopefully make people smile when they've signed up.
Yes.
So yeah,
that's smart.
One example of many.
But how do you come up with this stuff? That's why we need to do that episode. I'll have.
Can I quote Dustin because he's not here?
Got only in a thick American accent though.
Oh, that's gonna be good. Okay, let's hear it.
I can't. I just like that. Like
quite a hard accent to do, isn't it? Hey guys, it's Dustin Lee here from Retro Supply.
Retro Supply.
That was awful. Sorry, Dustin.
He said when he was on being interviewed on another platform that find the bit of marketing that you enjoy.
Yep.
And then go in and do that. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about trying to do every bit of marketing, but find something that you enjoy and pursue that because you'll find it much easier to then put more effort into it. And true. I'm just trying to find that bit of marketing.
We will get there. I'm making it a personal mission. I mean, that somewhat segues into my back to square one at the minute. So I totally know how you're feeling, Lisa, and have done for a while because, as you know, I'm doing my own like video show and podcast, and I feel like when you get those bands where one member goes and starts a solo project on the side.
Oh, yes.
Just for that extra level of like
pressure.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say creativity and like a
no, don't they
outlet.
normally do that because the band's holding them back and they
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, isn't there normally like a fallout because they want their own cut?
I'm sailing to new heights. I don't need you guys. I've got my 190 YouTube subscribers, so see you later.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, I've really, so for anyone who doesn't know, this is like I'm teaching more like marketing entrepreneurship for creatives and even non-creatives, and I'm really enjoying the back to square one aspect of that. Because it really is like I'm not really leveraging any platforms that I have already. It's pretty much been like a standing start, and it's really humbling because it completely shifts your mindset. I don't know if you found this, Lisa, because I'm thinking in quite a big scale with my day-to-day stuff at Design Cuts. You know, all of it's there. Like we've spent years building up a reputation, which then opens doors easier, and et cetera, et cetera. And now this is in quite a different space. And I don't really know that many people in that industry. I don't like a lot of people in like the marketing industry. I think it can be quite sleazy and all the rest of it.
What? You don't like the Lamborghini guy?
Oh my God, don't get me started. Yes, I may have done an episode the other day called How to Not Be a Dick Online, which I quite enjoyed.
Did you do it in front of a bookcase as well, saying that knowledge is
knowledge is power. But I think as scary as it can be, and I'm now here doing this thing in the same way as Lisa. This is a little creative venture of my own, and there's a few things going on. So first of all, I don't have you guys, so I feel like it's kind of all on me. I don't have my team. Like, it's so personal and it's such a solo mission that I'm like, if this publicly fails, then I directly look like a failure. And that's...
You mean you can't hide behind us?
Yeah, exactly. I can't blame Ian if the show dips.
Or blame Dustin for his not getting back on email.
Lack of email response.
So that is one side of the coin, and I completely empathise with where you're at, Lisa. And for anyone listening, I completely get it. Whether you're at square one because you're just starting something on the side of a day job, or you're established in your field but you're pivoting and you're trying something new, it does feel scary. It does feel very square one. But equally, I get a real kick out of it because I don't know about you guys, but I weirdly like that early phase because I find it the most exciting. For me, being like, we've increased revenue by 8% or something doesn't excite me as much. When you're at a fuller capacity and you're just kind of moving the needle, that's not as exciting as going from having nothing to having something cool and meaningful and it taking off. So I think you need to, like, here's back to the cliches, but I do think you need to learn to love that journey. And I really do. And I'm enjoying being transparent and saying, you know what, like, I genuinely don't care how many followers I've got, how many subscribers I've got, that kind of thing. I'm just enjoying doing it. And it's also realize that, you know, if you're building a community, it's really satisfying to have a tight, close-knit, small community. That's really fulfilling. So I'm enjoying.
That's meaningful.
Yeah, like, and of course we have that with Design Cuts, but, you know, we've got hundreds of thousands of customers now. So that's a little bit different. But when you've got 40 people cheering you on, that has a really kind of quaint, like, rewarding, amazing feel to it. And you really kind of love those people. And so I like that aspect too. And even if it's not community driven, you know, realize you can start celebrating the little wins as well. So Lisa, you're going to be able to, you know, when you make that next pattern sale, that's going to be huge, or you get your first kind of retainer contract on patterns, or your dream client or one of your dream clients out your list of the top 5, or whatever it might be, or you send that email, which I suggested, and people come back from there. All those kind of initial wins, they should be really fun. So I think, you know, you and I and anyone listening, you shouldn't live entirely in that world of dread. You should look for the small wins. You should look for the fun and the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Can I just say something about the Because when I was on Instagram, I didn't know anything about audience. I didn't know anything about engaging with your fans. I was just posting, just consistent.
Just what you wanted to.
Yeah. And so I suppose the downside of that is that I've built up an audience that I've without having okay, here's an analogy because it's just working better from my head. Is that, when you go to a gig, which is in a pub or in a small venue, and it's really intimate and you can chat with the band and, a few other people around there. And that's what you guys, Lisa with her new venture and Tom with his, where you can get that really good engagement, build really nice and authentic relationships. But I suppose I missed out on that in terms of the fact that I didn't realize that was a thing until I had quite a big audience. And so what it's like now is that, I have got some good relationships through it, but it feels like that I'm doing a bigger gig where there's not that intimacy because it's hard to, juggle in terms of... Yeah, you
kind of almost missed that phase in a way.
Yeah. But I've talked about this. You need to think of it. Remember the little upside down triangle that I drew? So if the fat part is your...
I can't remember what was in it.
All right, so you got an upside down triangle.
Yeah.
You're currently looking at the widest part at the top.
Yeah.
And you want to try and get to the narrow part at the bottom, which is less people, but the people who care deeper.
Yeah.
And the way you do that from a marketing perspective, sorry, listeners, tangent here, but you would put out something like on your Instagram stories saying, hey, looking to do something cool for my most engaged community, swipe up and go to a private Facebook group that I've set up or something like that. And that way, out of your 250,000+ followers, only a fraction of them are going to watch the stories. Only a fraction of them are going to swipe up. Only a fraction of them are going to sign up for the Facebook group. And so it's a super quick hack to basically filter off the people who actually care the most. And so then you kind of get that early group, but just in retrospect.
See, that's why you're, the
Tom.
honest entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say an element I love as well in terms of going back to square one is funneling all of your past knowledge and experience from your previous ventures into the new one. So Lisa, you're not going from a complete standing start in terms of being a novice and having no clue what you're doing. And we've all been there as well. I had that with design cards where I'd been doing this stuff since I was 12. So when I started that, I had so much clarity and vision because I'd made so many mistakes leading up to that. And I don't know if this might sound weird, I don't know if you've experienced this, but when you build something and you build it over years and you make loads of mistakes, it can become a bit kind of big and clunky. I sometimes call it Frankensteining because it's you're bolting on bits over the years and it ends up being a bit of a mess.
Absolutely.
And it's almost just you look back and it's just this kind of mottled path of mistakes. And you can never feel sometimes it's appealing to want a blank slate because you look at this big thing riddled with past mistakes and you think, oh man, I'd almost love to go back to square one and do it right from the start. And I think that can be a really good outlet because then you put all that clarity into that blank slate and often it will grow faster than your previous thing because you'll do a better job of it from day one.
Yeah.
And as you said, it'll have less clutter not only in your mind, but all the as you move along in the path, whether it's your website or how you reach out to clients or whatever. So that is, I must say that those kinds of things I have been very grateful for to have that along with me now on this new journey.
I love it. Sorry, Lisa, I'll give you a super quick example. I think there's so many transferable skills. So even if someone's coming from a corporate 9 to 5 in sales, they could apply some of their sales techniques to a freelance graphic design career and getting clients.
Definitely.
Even down to the software that they've used. They might use a CRM for their clients and suddenly they can transfer that and use the same thing as a freelancer. Or in your case, imagine if the patterns take off, more than you ever imagined. You go on to become one of the most successful pattern designers in the world, and the digital products pale by comparison. It could happen. But then if you went and started doing the Pattern Lady podcast, you better believe that doing this one for 2 years is going to set you up to be a natural at that. Whereas if you know what I mean? So there's all these random talents you accrue along the way, which you can then pour into your next thing.
Absolutely. And you know, it's actually, I don't think people do this enough, but it's great to take stock what you thought like along the way, as you said. Now your journey's kind of been like a Frankenstein journey, but at the same time, you can actually see a pattern, how the one thing led to the other.
I like what you did there.
Sorry. As you can see, I've been like, you know, yeah. But, you know, you can see like how the one thing led to the other and helped the other one, even though at the time you might have hated it or you thought it was a waste of time, but it all kind of like has a knock-on effect. And yeah, you kind of like, I've known this stuff, but just talking to you guys has reminded me that like I'm so grateful that I'm not really starting from like absolutely zero.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's at least you know a couple of things. Well, you hope you do.
Isn't hindsight great?
I suppose something that like me and Lisa, less Tom, because he's a little bit younger.
Ouch, buddy. Left me out the cool gang there.
Well, no, but
because you're young.
Yeah, because like you know, people want to come out of college and know exactly what they want to do. It's like, you know, that question, they go, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, actually, you just need to, like, what I would have loved to do between 20 and 30 would just explore constantly different avenues of design, of anything really, because...
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It's all those different experiences that then make, combined with, you know, it's combining one or two of those, maybe three, that give you your individual niche. You know, rather than just doing lettering, rather than just doing illustration or one of these books I was reading, it was talking about the cartoonist in the paper, and he got that because he liked doing illustration or liked doing cartoons, had a business background, and also some other elements that made him, or, you know, he could write jokes. So that, you know, those three things together, business, could tell jokes about business and do a cartoon about it, made a very specific niche in something. So don't think, you know, just try not to think in just like narrow, it's just about this. Think about the other things that you can bring to the table that you're either passionate about, have the abilities in and the trained in, because it's amazing, you know, because it's not just design, it's sales and marketing. And, you know, like Lauren Hahn was talking about how, you know, she has that part of that background and the copyright and stuff like that. Copywriting is, you know, really helps with the stuff she's doing. And also her side projects, bringing those in as well, really help to, you know, lift her up, I suppose.
I completely agree, 1,000%. We are all our own unique cocktail of experiences, just completely. I did a episode on my show called Overnight Success Doesn't Exist, where I talked about exactly this and said, I wouldn't be sat here doing this podcast and Design Cuts wouldn't exist if I didn't, on a whim, open up Paint Shop Pro when I was like 12, 13 years old. And the paths that spill out, like, we wouldn't be doing this podcast right now if I hadn't done a couple of mastermind groups before, because this started as a mastermind, and I only did that because I thought, oh, I enjoyed that one I did, you know, a year or two before that, and that was really helpful. You have no idea, these random things like that I've never really done again suddenly open up a door to something new. And in the same way that we're all unique as people, our collective experiences are all like a completely unique recipe. No one has my set of experiences. No one has your set, Ian, or your set, Lisa. But that's so cool.
The kind of person we'd make is if we were like bits of Frankenstein put together. That would be quite something. A little bit, I don't know. There would be Hey man, that'd be a force to be reckoned with, don't you?
Yeah, we could get Dustin back, and we could be like that giant thing in the Power Rangers. You know, where they all like bolt onto each other.
Exactly.
Maybe when we speak at our first conference, hopefully this summer, we can do it where like you guys sit on like Ian's shoulders or something, and we just hang off the side.
Exactly.
I'm saying, Ian, you look the sturdiest and strongest, Ian. We're going.
Yeah.
We won't ask you to run anywhere.
Yeah. now I'm 40. My joints.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday for the other day.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I haven't seen you since that. Everyone is going to be a bit delayed when this goes out, but wish Ian a delayed happy birthday on social media and send him your commiserations. Now he's the wrong side of 40.
No ways. Best years.
How old are you, Tom, again?
I'm 30, so I'm the wrong side of 30. And I was told they're the best years, Lisa. Have people been lying to you?
They are. Both 30 and 40.
Okay, what about after that? I've never heard anyone be like, oh, your 80s, best years of your life.
I suppose it depends how you prepare for them.
Yeah,
I think
this is true.
Like, the thing is, for me, it's been a like journey of like self-awareness. So the more self-aware I get, the happier I get, I think. You know, in terms of knowing what makes me tick and what doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, rather than doing the same things that annoy or frustrate me, because I just don't realise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what makes. You know what. You know, I was struggling to realise what was stressing me out about certain jobs I was doing and stuff like that. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I can read the signs. Oh, sorry,
you kept getting electrocuted. That's stressing you out.
Yeah, never learned that lesson.
And you know another kind of weird thing that I've realised, which I would never have thought if I in my 20s, is that I think the physically stronger I feel, the better I feel as well mentally. Isn't that weird? I don't know. The older I've got, the fitter I'm my fittest that I've ever been in my life. It's quite bizarre.
Good for you. Were you bench pressing Cliff right before this episode?
Yeah. And I think it's so true. I'm not going to remember his name now. Tony Robbins. Yeah, I remembered his name.
Big lad.
Yes,
your memory's still there.
Yeah, your body's a temple, the brain's getting there.
It's much. Yeah, because years ago when I saw one of his talks, and the thing that he was hammering home was like healthy body, healthy mind kind of thing, and I didn't really get it then, but it's so true. I think creatives are kind of bad at this because we get so caught up in our work that we actually do forget to eat well and exercise and do all those things.
Don't know what you mean, he says, hunched over his laptop with bloodshot eyes.
The thing, it's really true because like I busted myself about 2 months ago trying to do kickboxing at 39.
I mean, that's a better midlife crisis than a Porsche, mate.
It was my younger friend who took me along. I blame it on him. But I mean, I couldn't do any exercise for 2 months, or I still haven't been able to do properly any exercise.
No.
And then like,
but you feel it mentally.
Yeah, you do definitely. Yeah, and like you say, and actually in the past few years, I've been in the best shape I've ever been, and be healthier than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But it's taken that long to realise that your diet and exercise do really make a difference to your mental and physical well-being.
It's so true.
Yeah, that's it. I've only started thinking about that stuff recently. Anyway, before it turns into an episode about us complaining about how old we're all getting, I would say whether you are 15, 30, 40 or 86, if you want to go and start something, start something from square one, pivot, then, go and give it a try and don't be afraid to share that journey. I'm sure there will be people there to support you and egg you on. It's going to be scary. It's going to be very scary at points, but it can also be exhilarating and rewarding. Yeah. And you might forget how much you actually loved the early stages of whatever it is you're finishing up doing now or transitioning away from. So hopefully you get some of that early stage passion back. So on that note, that's it from us. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
That was the worst sign off ever. We'll see you guys. It's like Yogi
really.
Bear.
It's okay, Tom.
Right. See you later, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.